Alrighty, so welcome everyone. My name's Mia, and I am the owner of Move, Create, Radiate. And welcome to our Wellbeing Wednesdays. So here we share practical exercises and tips for women to find balance in their lives. And I'm really honored today to have with me Claudine. And Claudine has 25 years of experience in personal and professional leadership development through strategic planning, corporate wellness, Division I college football, and community programming. She is skilled in engaging and empowering people to strive for higher levels of performance. Claudine launched Ascent Planning LLC in 2010, whereby she works with individuals and organizations in facilitating leadership development and building strong teams through self-discovery using emotional intelligence EQI 2.0 and the Paterson Life modules. Adventure, ambition, and inspiring individuals and teams to be their best is where Claudine thrives. And she has a little exercise for us today, so I'm going to hand it over to her.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for being here. It's so fun to see faces from all over. Oh, is that Georgia? Hi, Georgia. I saw her waving over there.
No, I'm actually in Summit County right now.
Oh, you are? Oh, yay! Yay, glad you're here. I was going to say we have people from Texas all the way to the Caymans, to Eagle, to right here in Summit County. So thank you all for being here. Thank you most of all for just carving out 10 minutes for yourself. Give yourself credit for doing that. Sometimes it's not always easy to do, especially in this pandemic, right? 10 minutes for your well-being goes a long way, even though this is only 10 minutes. And so with that, we will jump right into finding your why. And, you know, I do full day workshops on this, so I will do as much as I can to pack this in 10 minutes. But finding your why will give you that motivation to know the reason for doing what you're doing. So when you hear find your why, and feel free to chat or just unmute, it's a small enough group. When you hear finding your why, what do you think of?
Your motivation.
Like a purpose, you know, kind of
purpose, motivation.
The reason that's going to keep you focused on that over something else.
Good. Yeah, all great answers. And there is no right or wrong, right? We are getting grounded in what our purpose is, our reason for doing what we're doing. And I'm going to invite you to shift your mindset a little bit and think about, is your purpose, like not everyone has sat down and written their purpose statement, right? But I have, because I've gone through the life plan process myself. And so I have a life purpose, mission, and vision statement. And that's to inspire individuals and organizations and teams to be their personal best. And so that looks different in all my different life domains. Inspiring people in my family domain is my kids and my husband, right? Allowing them to be who they want to be and flourish in their own skin. In career, it's doing workshops like this. It's working with teams and corporate organizations and nonprofits. In my community work, it's being a CASA volunteer and advocating for kids in the foster system. But that theme is consistent through all the work that I do because it is what gets me going, right? And the shift here is it's an internal motivation versus external, right? So the old paradigm is that, you know, we just do, and we just keep going. But take time to think about what is that purpose for continuing to go. And if it is something external, if it is for financial gain, if it is for, you know, just to not disappoint somebody, those are all external type of motivators, right? And that is like the carrot that's on the treadmill of life. So it'll keep you just running on that treadmill of life and chasing that carrot versus being inspired internally and having that motivation come from within. You see that paradigm shift there? And a lot of what that changes is that you can sustain it and you won't get burnt out. And you're not saying that you won't ever, right? We all have our seasons, but you will have an intrinsic motivator versus always chasing that carrot on the treadmill of life and feeling like you're just surviving versus thriving. And that is where that shift is slight, but it can happen if that internal motivation is true and purposeful. Then we are leading from within, and we're not always just trying to fill that bucket externally. Another paradigm shift is looking at life as a sprint versus a marathon. Any runners out there? Ashley's, both Ashley's there, Mia. How would you train for a marathon versus, sprint training? How do you just go out and run your 32 miles? No, right?
Start slow. Less miles.
Less miles. Yeah, you pace yourself, right? And think of it as like, right now it's kind of like high intensity interval training, right? We're just doing little bursts of energy versus looking at life like, I just got to run this whole race. Do your best for every interval that you're hitting, right? And show up there. And so just be open to shifting that perspective. So I'm going to have you do an exercise. I want you guys to draw a clockwise circle on the ceiling. Now bring that circle down in front of your chest. And which way is that circle going? You're still pointing at the ceiling, right? So point at the ceiling clockwise. Keep pointing at the ceiling. And now, which way is that circle going?
Counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise. And we started clockwise, right? So what happened there? Why did it change directions? Are some of you still trying to figure that out? How did that happen? Perspective shift. Thank you, Mia. So we changed perspective, right? You're still doing what you're doing. You're still going the same direction in that spin cycle, but your perspective shifted from looking up to looking down at your finger. And so that exercise is just to model that it's hard to change our habits. We will continue to do what we do. We can still change habits, but more importantly, we can shift perspective very easily. And that's just by opening our mind to different paradigms, different models, different ideas, especially during times like this, right? And so what are you doing to shift perspective and just be open to that perspective shift as well? So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into this exercise, and I want you in your journal or piece of paper, whatever, just list 1 to 10. And I want you to just start listing things that bring you joy. Moments like that you've had that aha, like I was meant for this. Or maybe when you were younger, when you said, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a teacher. And they can be simple things from, what brings me joy is just a glass of wine at the end of the night, or sitting on a surfboard at sunset. That was one of my aha moments after my practice marriage, when I had that moment of just like, oh, you know what? I am doing the right thing. This is okay. One to 10. And you don't have to do it all now. This is a journaling exercise you can continue to do on your own. You can do it like when I do these at the beginning of the year, because there's a lot of workshops at the beginning of a new year, I say list 1 to 52. And then every week look at one of these things. But here's your shift. This is not, I'm not going to tell you, go out and do more of this, right? Remember what we were talking about is finding your why. And so I want you to ask yourself, what is it that brings me joy about doing that activity? And this can even be things that you want to do that you think would bring you joy. Like an example here is when I was doing this list, it was 1 to 100 when I first did it. And one of them was like, wanted to learn to knit. And if you know me, which all of you do, I don't knit. I'm not someone that's going to sit there and knit, but for some reason I wanted to learn to knit. And then I had to ask myself, why? Why do I want to learn to knit? I'm not going to sit there and knit. Like, that's just not my thing. But there was something in me that wanted to learn to knit. So I did. And oh, I have it. I bring this with me when I speak because, so I knit. This is my first little thing I knit. Okay. So I show it to Mark and he's like, you know, you can just go buy a scarf at the store. And I'm like, no, but I really wanted to learn the process. So my why behind learning to knit is process. I love process. I love strategy. I love having a plan. And my reason for wanting to learn to knit was just like, how do two knitting needles and yarn come together to create these fabulous things? And then I'm done. I don't knit anymore and I don't need to learn, but I wanted to learn the process. Okay, so this is my thing. That's it. I'm not knitting anymore. But a friend of mine did the same exercise and on her list was learn to knit too. So I'm like, let's get together and we'll knit. And she was just making all kinds of stuff. And so then I asked her, well, what is your why? Why do you like to knit? And her why is because she loves to create and she loves to give gifts. Okay, so two very different reasons for our why and our purpose, but the same exercise of just knitting. And we could still connect and get together and knit, but we had very different purposes of our why. And so with that exercise, I challenge you to, you know, just every once in a while, look at your list and ask yourself why. And dig deeper into what is it that brings you joy about that. And if it doesn't, scratch it off your list and don't do it. Because maybe it's there because of a should when you were younger. You got those should messages. Oh, you should do this, you should do that. Or this is what women should do. Or this is what moms should do. Or this is what career women should do. And if that is not an internal motivator for you, cross it off your list and give yourself permission to let that go. All right, so I'm going to honor our time. That was like 11 minutes, I think. And so I would love to open it up to any questions, any feedback or thoughts or aha moments, or even if you want to share your why, I'd be happy to pick it apart with you if you want to stay on longer.
Thank you, Claudine. I just had a thought where I have a really long list of things that I love to do. And I just, like today, I'm still hoping to brush my teeth. And I love that you had us write the inner why, because what I'm going to do with my list is try and, like, I love to play guitar because it's expressive and I just haven't had time. So how do I express those qualities? And I love to knit because it's meditative. Acknowledging the reality that I'm in right now. So
Right.
thank you. I think that's great.
What I love about those two things, Em, are that those are for you, right? Those aren't because you had a kid tugging on your leg and because, you know, you have to do homeschool. Those are for you. And so that, you know, way to just tap into that inner motivation, because that's that self-care, right? Today is Wellbeing Wednesday with Mia. And so that is something you can do for you to help you show up and do all those other things that we have to do to survive, right? So do some of that, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I gotta run, but thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I will focus on it.
Great to see you, Chris. Yeah, and I wanted to say too, you know, back to Mia and her purpose for her group of Move, Create, Radiate. On your list, do you have something that gets you to move? Is it physical, right? Because we all need those endorphins. We need that cortisol. We need the oxytocin. We need movement and exercise. It's good for us. Is there something that inspires you to create? Is it artistic? Is it not so artistic? Everyone always says, oh, I'm not artistic. But, that's what art is. It's just being creative. However you tap into your creative expression is creating into that. And then radiate. How do you show up? How are you radiating and shining in the world? Maybe it's just brushing your teeth today. And that's okay. But how are you going to radiate and include that in some of your why? How do we move, create, and radiate to be our best selves?
I love breaking it down into those 3 little sections, because to sit there and think about like, oh my gosh, what's my big purpose in life feels really intimidating to me. And I love what you said about like, look on your list, and are these things that are real things for you, or are they things that people sort of put on you as you should do? And I think about like when I went to college and everyone was like, oh, you should major in accounting. And I was like, okay, because I didn't really think about what do I really want to do. And I did that. And, now many years later, I'm like, that served its purpose for a lot of different reasons, but definitely not for bringing me joy in accounting. And, now my life is so much the opposite of that, and very, more creative and artistic, which is definitely something that comes from within for me. So it's important to, no matter where you are in your life, and, I'm in my 40s, and it's like right now it's still not too late to do what I really want to do and have the purpose that I really think I'm, put on this earth for, and not think, oh, well, I didn't do it in my 20s, so just got to move on.
Yeah. And it's a journey, right, Danielle? So, like you said, it's not like we're going to do this exercise and you're going to walk away with your life purpose.
Right.
It's a journey of discovery. And so this is, if you haven't done anything like this before, this is a first step towards that.
Right.
And just reflecting on your past and saying, oh, this is where I was. And some of that all happens for a reason too, right? There's
Absolutely.
No path. Sometimes we have to go down those paths, most likely. It's usually like I go that way and I realize, oh, no, I don't want to go that direction. And you turn around and go that way. Yes. But that's part of life. That's the journey. And so discovering your purpose and finding your why is a journey. So thank you for sharing that.
I have to say that one of the things I put on my list was independence, which when we did that exercise, like that has unfolded in my life in the past 2 years a lot. And Claudine, that I got a divorce in 2019 and moved to Texas, and it was super hard being a single mom. I was going on 13 years of marriage, and I really did not want to get a divorce. And I moved, and then after he was gone, I started to live independently for the first time, because I got married at 20 years old, and I liked it. Like, I really liked it. So yeah, I back in college and trying to like find a career that will continue to foster that for me. But it is true, like being like the mouse on the wheel. Like I feel that still, because like my goals to reach in life are hard and daunting, and it's a long journey to get there. But I've also discovered like I want a guy who is going to support me to be independent in those ways.
I love it, Ashley. Yeah, and that's one of your whys, right, is independence. You can still be married, have a family, but still have a sense of independence, right? Because if that's what makes you come alive, you're like, I can do this. I know, Ashley, I know that when you do things, you're just like, yeah, I got this. I don't need anybody. And it's empowering for you. And so embrace that and make sure you're leading with that it's independence, right? And that theme is throughout your life, right? And the choices that you make. So thank you for sharing that.
I think a lot of our goals are very big, like work-related, parenting things. I like to sometimes keep it simple, and this isn't necessarily my why that gets me up in the morning, but something like the perfect cup of coffee at the perfect temperature brings me great joy. And I think that daily I sort of seek out one small thing that just really I can appreciate and centers me, so that, you know, then I'm looking for joy, I think, in other things. So
Yeah.
for me too. Sometimes I go small.
Well, and I love that, Kristen, because even just you saying like, you know, I'm like thinking when you're saying that, what is your why behind that? And it's simplicity so that you can really appreciate all the, because there's so much big, right? So to keep things simple helps you just stay grounded and appreciate the little things. And so I love that. I love that. And that was actually, I don't know if you guys are on my blog, but one of the things that I said about, you know, how we can refuel and avoid this surge capacity that we're all getting depleted is to have a simple ritual like that. And it was making a cup of coffee in the morning or a cup of tea in the morning, because that's just like something you do, something easy that you can just do for yourself, right? It's just, you know, Mark I hear the microwave, because like he heats his coffee up for 12 seconds after every like 30 minutes so that he has that like perfect temperature. But that's just his routine that kind of grounds him. So yeah, simple things too, because that's again getting into that perspective of like, we always look at this marathon, right? There's so much we have to do, but really being able to, you know, I love it going from that big thing that we have to do to just some of the small, simple things just really helps keep things in perspective. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Claudine. This was beautiful. I really like thinking of the whys behind things that have made me happy. I've made lists a lot of things that bring me joy, but never really looked into the why before. And I really like as well finding the kind of multitude of what those are, because a lot of the whys are different. So it's neat to see if there's a lot of whys in the same category of things that I'm thinking of.
Right.
And I can tell that my focus is at one aspect of my life. If they're all creativity, and it's like knowing that's needed more, or if I can find a balance in those.
Yeah. And looking for the themes, right? So as you go through those lists, you know, when you get bigger and that list, just keep adding to the list and asking yourself why, but then look for those emerging themes. You know, is it simplicity? Is it independence? And that begins the journey of, you know, eventually working towards your purpose statement. Not that you're always living like in that lane. You'll get out of your lane sometimes, but that is what kind of centers you, is that driving force of creativity or independence or simplicity.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for this activity, and thank you for your time. And I will have a recording up on this of the Women's Well-Being Facebook group. So if you want to go back to this exercise or look at this again, there will be a recording up there. And if anyone has any questions for Claudine or myself, you can comment on that and just let us know. And I would love to hear how it goes for you if you continue to journal on this in the future. Let us know what you continue to find.
Yeah, Mia, maybe we do a part 2.
Yeah.
And we have everyone share what they've discovered. So.
I would love that. I think that'd be great sharing.
All right. Thank you all for being here. And again, just carving this out time for yourself, and go make that perfect cup of coffee.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Good to see you. Bye.